I am going to talk about time in the body, time being the theme. And there's some things I want to say. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, let me leave that. Uh, um, and it's not quite a lecture. We'll do some exercises. I think everyone in this group has done them or done some of them. So we're going to play this by ear and see where it goes. Okay. So one of the challenges of being the last in a speaker series is the people who come before pick topics. So initially I was going to do this on time and Fudo Chi. So cut the before and after, and I thought, oh, that'd be great. And then, oh, that's done. And then, time being an illusion, that's done. Let's see, what else do we have? Time being whatever. So, a lot of time went by. 49 days, I guess, is a long time, and credit to you guys for sticking this through. But I thought, well, there is one element of time that I think is worth addressing, and that is the lifespan. This may not be what you were expecting with this. I'm not a great time management person, but when I thought about it, yeah, that's something that we need to look at. And related to that is time and health. Or I should say, it is the time and lifespan is related to issues of health. And I want to talk about those things as well. And then just go over some exercises. Again, I think everyone has been in my Hatha development drop-in at some point. So let me say a couple things about lifespan. When the historic Buddha, when Shakyamuni Buddha was asked, how long is the lifespan? How long does a person live? Does anyone know what he said? And Scobie Roshi, you're shaking your head no. Oh, your teacher should be scolded for that one. Okay, would anyone like to venture a guess? What would be your answer to that? How long does someone live?
Exactly how long they're supposed to.
Oh, I like that. But that's not the answer I'm looking for. That's good. That's even more advanced maybe than Shakyamuni Buddha. So your teacher should be rewarded for that. Anyone else want to comment on this or answer this question? One breath. Okay. And when I first heard that, I thought that's kind of cutesy, but it's really true. Because if you don't take one breath after that one breath, you're in hot water. Okay? That's one way of unpacking that. But the other is, in each breath, there's essentially a lifetime. And that time can be suspended, and I think that this has been covered in this series before. You could look at it that each breath is an entire life or has a life of its own. Now, when we talk about Zen and health and longevity, I always feel sort of on a slippery slope. And there are two ways of looking at it. One is that, well, let me back that up. Zen has become very much associated, as has Buddhism in general, with health in this society that is kind of anomalous given the history of Buddhism and Zen. So in my experience, a lot of people start Zen training because they want better health. And they think that Zen will get them there. And that's not to say it won't, but that in itself is not a historic motivation why we're going to do Zen. And there are all kinds of reasons, or we can describe all kinds of reasons for studying Zen. Kind of bottom line is you can look at it to discover one's true nature, to resolve dualities, or to solve very deep existential questions. Now, health is certainly important. So Gordon Roshi, who you know, he's a bit of, he likes to poke at things. When he moved to Madison, he had an ad campaign. Scobie Roshi, I don't remember if you were here for that, but it said, Zen hurts. And it goes on to say, Zen is not good for your health. It's not good for your environment. It's not good for the environment. I don't remember all of it else. It's all very sparse. And then it said, if you really, I don't remember how it wound up, if you really want to find yourself, then kind of I'm your man. And there's a lot of truth to this. Now, is anyone here familiar with Brad Warner? I know Scobie Roshi, you've read his stuff. And Brad Warner's a really interesting guy. He's a Soto Zen priest, but he is, it's almost he goes out of his way to not look like a priest, act like a priest, talk like a priest. He's a former punk rocker. I think played bass in Ohio in the 90s or 80s. There was a big punk rock scene, and he was in that, and then became a monk. And he's very, I guess the word is iconoclastic. And like he wrote a book called "Sit Down and Shut Up," "Don't Be a Jerk," and he's actually, I think, quite brilliant in terms of how he can take very complex Zen concepts and put them into a vernacular that's particularly good for people generations younger than I am. At any rate, he, in his most recent book, which is on Zen ethics, which is called, what was it called? I don't remember. Now, anyway, he talks about, there was this TV show, and he's very up to date on popular media. There was this TV show where they look at alien sightings and stuff like that. And the guys always would say, I ain't saying they're aliens, but, and the but is, yeah, well, I'm really saying they're aliens. So we can say, Zen isn't good for health. Now, I ain't saying it's aliens, but, okay? So there's a lot to be said that Zen training can help health. But there was a fellow Zen master in our temple in Hawaii. He and I were close. We actually got ordained together. His name was Stephen Kao, Chinese American, and he was a Tai Chi teacher. And when people would ask him, "How can this help my health?" He's, with his home, he lived longer. Basically, he would say, "No, Zen really helps you face your death when it comes. So whenever it's going to come." So there's that whole other side of it. And ultimately, that's probably truer to the Zen conceptualization of things. But I ain't saying they're aliens, but there's a lot we can go with that. So with that, I want to talk about, and I'm not here to lecture really, one of the most famous Zen masters in history was a man named Hakuin Zenji. And he's not contemporary. A lot of times you think these famous Zen masters, you think someone who lived in 500 AD or something like that. But he lived in the 1800s. And he was credited with revitalizing Zen. So a lot of the protocols that we have comes from him. If you've done Sesshin, he really set up the structure of that, as well as a lot of things with koan training, if you know about that. So we are very much indebted to Hakuin. And he had quite an illustrious history. He he was scared. His mother belonged to a different sect of Buddhism, and she took him to the temple once, and there was a story about the different realms of hell, and he was scared. He wouldn't go outside for a long time. Anyway, it drove him to become a monk, and he eventually wound up studying Zen. But he trained so hard that he became sick. He had no energy. He was listless, and in a Zen monk, that's kind of a big deal. And I think this was after he became a Zen master. I'm not 100% sure about that. I could look it up. Anyway, he had what they called Zen sickness. And no one quite knows exactly what that means. Some people think it was, there's an out of fashion psychiatric diagnosis called either neurasthenia or psychasthenia. They're related. And it's kind of now, we would see it as a psychosomatic illness where you're fatigued, kind of almost like it would be consistent with kind of like chronic fatigue and depression. Some people think when they talked about Zen sickness, they were talking about tuberculosis. And if you can imagine, in these Zen monasteries in China and Japan, a lot of people together, they didn't have great Center for Disease Control like we have now. So you can imagine that these things became rampant. At any rate, he became quite sick. And he was actually feeling suicidal. As he wrote, he said, I forget, but it's kind of, oh yeah, he said, in his words, but after that night, he talked about a certain evening, when reflecting on my daily life, those two conditions of life, activity and non-activity, had become entirely out of harmony. The two inclinations in me towards finiteness and infinity had become indistinct in my mind. I could not make up my mind to do or not to do. So that the thought occurred to me that I would like to clothe myself in a lustrous globe and throw off my present life and depart from this world. In other words, suicidal. It's kind of flowery language. So someone told him about a Taoist sage who was living in the mountains. A guy named Hokyu-ju. And he was very mysterious. Lived alone, didn't see people. He had to hike up this big mountain to see him. So Hakuin set on this pilgrimage to go see him. And I can give you the reference where Hakuin talks about this, big, trekking, and he enters this valley and he sees the hut of this hermit sage and he goes to talk to him. And he said, he explained the situation to him. He said, maybe I should give up meditation. The hermit said, the problem is you're training too hard. Now, most of us have to say, I'm not training hard enough. How do I train harder? But they're saying, kind of you're overdoing it, Hakuin. And he said something that seemed cryptic at first. He said, fire rises, so make it come down. It is the nature of water to come down, so make it rise. Water rising, fire descending, this is called mixing. When these things mix together, they are perfected. When they do not mix, they are imperfect. Mixing is the sign of life. Non-mixing is a sign of death. And then go on, and he develops this theme. And he says, sir, he's talking to Hakuin again. Your fire heart has been going the wrong way, upwards, hence your chronic sickness. Unless you bring it down again, even though you were to exhaust all the secrets of the three worlds, you would not be able to stand. It is my plan, which is so like the way, to be considered very different from Shakyamuni. It is Zen. Well, so on. So basically, he's telling him something, you take the fire down to the water. Okay, what's this? Oh, and I forgot to say, supposedly the hermit was 250 years old or 350 years old. So I don't know if they measured time differently there, but although they did, there was a historic figure. They have tracked this down, and he was living near where Hakuin was, so can't say for sure. Then he says, one ought to know for certain that one should energetically fill the lower part of the body with spiritual energy, and this is essential for nourishing its life. All right, so I want to share, can I screen share on this? Yeah, okay, where is it? Yeah, here we go. I want to screen share with you. Are you able to see this PDF? Okay, so this comes from a booklet on Hana development that the Hawaii folks wrote years ago. And I want to give you some nomenclature here. First of all, this figure 1. I assume, does anyone not know what a hara is? Everyone knows a hara. Okay. Everyone knows what a navel is. We got that. And koshi means the hips, the flanks. Okay. And this is diagrammatically what the hermit is telling Hakuin. In old Taoist thinking, if you see my cursor here, the chest area, the heart, was seen as the realm of fire. The lower abdomen, what we call the hara, is the realm of water. And they say that if you bring the water upwards, so you bring the energy of your abdomen upwards, you put out the fire. Okay? And that's bad. And not only that, in doing that, it brings heat to your head and face. Okay? So that's what you don't want. Instead, well, okay, yeah, no, it's obscured there. Instead, what you want to do is bring the heat to the water. So you want to bring what's in your chest down to the abdomen. And what happens there is it boils the water. And that makes steam, not smoke. And steam is what we call ki or chi. And that invigorates the body. So that is what we are doing in our Zen training. In Hana development, what we're doing is bringing the fire down to the water. And actually, you can see it a lot of times when someone's sitting and they're really struggling and their face turns red, you know that they've brought the water up to the fire. And this isn't just metaphoric. It's what happens structurally with the body. Okay? So by keeping the keeping the expansion in the lower abdomen, in the hara, that's what generates the vital energy. So, happy story here with Hakuin, that he was cured of his Zen sickness, and he found that he really didn't have to back off on his Zen training, but with this instruction, he was able to get his health back and then lived a long life. I forget, let's see, he lived. I have this here. Hakuin lived. Hakuin. Maybe I don't have that. Well, 1786 to 1769. Maybe not bad for that age. So, I'm fully convinced that there are aliens about, in that if you live your life bringing the fire to the water, I can't say you're going to live longer, but you will live a more vital life when you know, for what you're doing. That's Zen training. There's also another side to this as well, from the standpoint of health. And that is, are people familiar with the term respiratory sinus arrhythmia? No? Okay. It sounds like a disease, but it's not. That there's a normal rhythm that the heart. Okay, we think of heart rate like my heart rate is 60 beats a minute or whatever. We think of it as consistent, one beat, each 1 second. That's 60. Yeah, right. But in fact, there's variation depending on how you're breathing. And that's what they call respiratory sinus. The sinus wave of inhalation, exhalation is it changes the rhythm. So when you exhale, your heart rate slows. when you inhale, it quickens. So when we work on long exhalations, you're really reducing your heart rate. Now, it might be different if you the overall, maybe you're still beating 60 beats a minute, but if you slow your exhalation, well, it would still change the number of times you're breathing. But what might be more important is the extent of your exhalation in terms of health, rather than just the number of beats per minute. Now, I used to have a very fast pulse. As a matter of fact, people used to make fun of me about it. I've gotten over that. But over the course of my Zen training, my pulse has gotten slower and slower and slower. My resting pulse is below 60. It's often like 55. And to the point that, long story short, I had to have a stress test when there's something called sick sinus syndrome, where that's when you need a pacemaker, and they thought that's what I had because my pulse was so slow. So I had to go through all these tests, and then finally they just said, well, they actually, the guy told me, he said, so I was like 70, I was like late 60s, and the guy told me, the tech, he said, you know, you have the heart of a 20-year-old. But he said, but you're compassionate, unlike the average 20-year-old, or something like that. And then I had knee surgery. This was about 10 years before that. And I was hooked up, you know, with the anesthesia, and they were hooking me to the monitor. And, you know, I looked at the surgeon, and I looked at the anesthesiologist, and they looked like they were like long-distance runners, you know. And the anesthesiologist asked me, he said, how many marathons have you run? None. Oh. Well, how many miles you run a week? Well, I don't run. Kind of like, look at my knee, guy. But he said, oh. So I'm not saying this to beat my drum, but I can't say for certainty that this was a product of my Zen training. I ain't saying they're aliens, but it would be hard to convince me otherwise. So in our training, we do two things, and they're related. We bring the fire down to the water, and we increase our exhalations, the length of our exhalations. Any questions or reactions to this? When we talk about, you were in the last Hara development drop-in, and I talked about the difference between Ishin and Zanshin. Do you remember that distinction? There's a lot of terminology. So the one thing is, in our exhalation, we do not take the abdomen in fully. Okay, and that might differ from a yoga practice. Probably the same thing is behind this, because I know in what do they call it in yoga, where you suck in your abdomen and it goes under the ribs? Does anyone know that? I don't remember. So it could be related to that. So just Ishin and Zanshin. So we use that in terms of commitment, just to review if people don't know. Ishin means, okay, Shin means heart or mind. And you can connote it as like spirit. And Ishi is one. So it's one heart, mind. Okay, that means you throw everything into something. Okay. But you should have something in reserve so that you're prepared for the next thing. So there's Ishin, I just explained. That we would say full commitment, everything into that. It's like you throw everything into it, but there's something remaining, and that's Zanshin. Zanshin means lingering or remaining heart or mind. And the way my teacher used to explain this, you might remember this, very evocative. He'd take a glass tumbler full of water, he'd dump it, and he'd go, that's I Ching. And then there'd be little droplets going down. He goes, that's Zanshin. So it also means that if you complete an activity, so like Scobie, Roshi, and I do Kyudo, Japanese archery, after you, it's very easy to let your concentration lapse after you've taken that shot and you start thinking, oh, I've done good, I've done bad, or I'm hungry, or whatever it is. But Zanshin means that you maintain that same state of mind. You can also extrapolate Zanshin, saying, okay, I've developed certain state of mind in the dojo, and then I go down to my home or something like that. Do I let it fall apart? No, you want it to continue. So, long-winded, full commitment. Okay, so your question is, now, I got to think about this. I'm exhaling. There is a slight pause here as you're engaging the musculature. I talked about this online last Saturday or whenever it was. And then you just release the muscles of the lower abdomen and pelvic floor. So that's my experience of it. There is a slight pause, but you don't prolong that pause. So you go, exhale. I'm going to do it vocally, okay? So let me do an exhalation, and I'd like to get Scobie Roshi's take on this as well, but let me do this. Exhale. So it's a very little pause. It's just you're kind of flipping a switch. That's how I would say it. So maybe it is different than we don't dwell on that pause. It took me these many words to get to no, we don't dwell on the pause. Okay, but there is a slight pause. Scobie Roshi, could you add your insight on this?
I mean, I think what Nora's saying is true though. Like, remember that book you had me read by
Zen Training by Sekida.
right. Um, there's a instruction in there about the 1 minute zazen. Do you remember that? Or 1 second zazen or
1
something?
minute.
1 minute.
Yeah.
And I think he talks about in that instruction to notice what happens at the end of the exhalation. And it's my experience too that at the end of the exhalation, like that's where the magic happens. Like your samadhi becomes more bright.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That is the most vital moment there. That transition between inhaling and exhaling. I also think Sekida's Zazen instruction is a little different than ours, but awareness of it, absolutely. So yeah, I'd forgotten that. I could give the reference if people want. So let me just say one other thing, and that is when we talk about experiencing time as a point, we talk about Zenko Zaidan is the Japanese term, the cutting the before and after. The key to it is exactly what we're talking about today, that it's by it's the breathing and related posture that generates the samadhi that allows that. So this is all interconnected that way. Okay. Now, we're at a choice point. We could go over some hatha development exercises, bring the fire to the water, or, because we have an hour, right, Scobie Roshi, roughly. We can also open this up to any questions or reactions you have to the 49-day program, or any questions you have at all. What's your preference? Okay. Oh, it's up for exercises. Okay, now I think everyone's done these. So how do we bring the fire to the water? First, we're going to loosen up the water. And everyone's done this exercise. We're going to inhale. Full inhale. Inflate your ribs. Oh no, don't do it yet. Don't do it. I'm going through the instruction and, okay. Inflate your ribs. Then you're going to exhale as much as you can, and I want you to contract your lower abdomen like you're bringing your navel to your spine, and then you're going to keep it taut, keep it tightened. We don't talk about tension in the lower, I'm doing it, I'm running out of breath. Tension in the lower abdomen until I go 3, 2, 1, I'll say, okay, release. Then I want you to just let go of the tension in your lower abdomen. This is going to get the water flowing down there. Then after that, do some regular breathing. So we're going to do this 3 times. Any questions? Okay, ready? Inhale. Exhale. And then navel to the spine. And tighten, tighten, tighten. 3, 2, 1. Release. Let that release drive your inhalation and just go back to breathing naturally. Okay. We're going to do that again. Inhale. Inflate your ribs. Exhale. Bring your navel to your spine. Three, 2, 1. Release. Breathe naturally. Okay, one more time. Inhale. Exhale. Three, 2, 1. Release. Okay. Any questions or comments so far? No? Okay. Next exercise, we're going to work on the fire. We're going to bring the fire down. 2 exercises. And Nora, I don't think we did this when you were here last week. What we're going to do, you're going to just watch me. I'm placing my fingertips right below my rib cage. So almost like I can curl my fingers around them. And then we're going to take a deep breath and again, inflate your rib cage. And then when you exhale, I want you to drive the fingers up under the rib cage until your exhalation is completed. And now we're going to hold our breath. You're going to massage a little here. And then inhale. What we're going to do is start as close to, now I've forgotten. What's the name of this point right below the sternum? The xiphoid process. Okay. The xiphoid process is point right below the sternum. So start as close as you can to there. Fingertips like this. Okay, we're going to inhale together. Exhale. And drive in those fingers. And then massage. Then inhale. Let your fingers come out. Okay, we're going to walk the fingers outward, so we're going to be moving towards the outside of our body. So just move about an inch or something like that. Inhale. Exhale. Massage. Inhale. Okay, here we go. Move them out about another inch. Okay, inhale. Exhale. Massage. Get those fingers up under the ribs. Inhale. Okay, walk out another inch or so. Inhale. Exhale. Massage. Inhale. I can get at least one more. How about you folks? Okay, I'm gonna shake it out. Okay, ready? Inhale. Exhale. Massage. Exhale. Okay, I think I'm good for one more. If you can do it, fine. If not, just sit it out or do it in the same spot. I don't know. Inhale. Exhale. Massage. Inhale. All right, now take some regular breaths here. Whoa. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it sure brings fire to my water. But what's your experiences? All right, we'll go on to the next exercise. This will probably be the last one. So, in no, this one you've done before. So, um, to one of the keys to keeping the fire down is to develop the musculature right below the xiphoid process. So when I exhale, even though my lower abdomen's expanded, I contract a little here. And it's difficult. It took me many, many years to figure that out, to be honest. Could be I'm a slow learner, which is probably true. So what we're going to do is inhale. And then before you exhale, push in right under the xiphoid process and use that to drive your exhalation. And see if by doing that, you get some more expansion in your lower abdomen. When you get expansion in the lower abdomen, basically you are taking the fire down. There's a whole lot other stuff to it, bring the fire down in terms of relaxing the muscles up here, but I don't have time for everything today. So I'm going to inhale, really inflate, and then before you exhale, just push in right under the xiphoid process. Use that to drive your exhalation. And then take your inhalation. We're not going to do this in back-to-back respirations. And again, inhale, and then push in here to drive that exhalation. Well, don't let go of the steering wheel when you do this. And come out. Inhale. Exhale. And let it go. And then go back to take some normal breaths and just kind of put your awareness in how you're breathing. If you notice anything as you're breathing faster, slower, longer exhalation, longer inhalation, whatever. Okay. Any questions or reactions to this exercise? Yeah, this one is to loosen up the musculature here so it can relax. Okay, that's part of bringing it down is take tension out here and it goes down. It also helps. Um, uh, what I feel is I get greater expansion of my rib cage, so I feel I'm taking a deeper breath when I do it. I think those two things are related. This one is to develop specific muscular set here, right under the xiphoid process, to learn to how if you contract that, it pushes the viscera down. That really brings the fire down. So one is to drive an exhalation, and the other is to loosen up. Is the best way I can put it. This is a little advanced here. This one, this last one, but you know, uh, since we had time, I thought we would do it. That's a good question. Okay. All right. Um, let's. We're just about out of time. Rather than doing any other exercises, you guys clear on these. I will put in a plug, a shameless plug for, we have the Hada development drop-in where we go over these exercises in more detail, and there's more time to answer specific questions, which generally comes up. And that's, let's go, Roshi. You can never remember, is it the 4th or the last Saturday of the month?
It's supposed to be the fourth Saturday, but we moved it in March.
Yeah, we moved it in March for whatever reason. Yeah, so the 4th Saturday. And it takes place right after the morning sitting on Saturday. Um, and then I also have a blog where I have a lot of exercises and theory about Hada development, and it's hadadevelopment.org. It's one word, hadadevelopment.org. I talked today about Hakuin, who's just really very, very interesting and very significant figure. It's called Roshi. Have you read this book? You think so? Yeah. It's a biography of Hakuin. It's very, very interesting, and it has a whole chapter on his encounter with the sage. And this is actually Hakuin's book called The Embossed Tea Kettle, and it's a compilation of different writings of his, and the the first essay is the one where he talks about meeting the sage, and it's called the Yasin Kana, which translates very poetically as a chat on a boat in the evening. So I would recommend that if you want to pursue this further. All right, anything else?